How long does it take to get a divorce in Virginia? Well, the answer depends on the type of divorce case you're contemplating. If you're thinking about an uncontested divorce case, it usually takes about 3 months for a divorce to be finalized. There are several aspects of the case that the party who's moving for the divorce, who's trying to get the divorce, really has very little control over. Now, the first part of the case that may take more time than anticipated is the other spouse accepting service of the papers and waiving any further notice in the case. Typically, in an uncontested case that I file, I send an acceptance of service and a waiver of further notice to the other spouse. And it's funny because occasionally, even though the spouses might have discussed cooperating in obtaining a divorce, that's something that they both wanted, when that other spouse actually gets the paperwork in the mail and sees the events depicted on paper, it all becomes very real. And it's not unusual to see a spouse suddenly decide that they may not want to cooperate in the process, or take their time and drag their heels in signing the forms and returning them to the spouse who's trying to get a divorce. After process has been accepted by that spouse, the spouse can assemble the evidence that's necessary for the divorce, either through depositions or affidavits of the plaintiff and his or her witness. A final decree of divorce is then prepared and submitted to the court. And the files are reviewed by the judge's clerk to make sure that everything's in order. And the volume of cases that the judges have at any given time changes and differs, and how quickly they can get to particular files changes or differs depending on when the file is submitted. So there's another element where the timing of the case is really not within the control necessarily of the plaintiff's counsel. With respect to a contested divorce, contested divorces can last quite a bit of time, and especially if the case requires a lot of time to try and the court's docket is backed up and has an overload of cases on it, it can take sometimes a year to 2 years just to get the case set for, to get a trial date set for the case of sufficient duration to allow the parties to present their cases. And in the meantime, the parties will be conducting discovery and obtaining documents and information from the other party and putting together their own case for presentation too. So a certain amount of time is required just to prepare for the trial of that particular type of case. You should discuss with your Virginia lawyer what your Virginia lawyer thinks how much time it will take for you to obtain the divorce that you want.